Welcome to Monday, September 19th, 2022. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Cowboy State Daily has more original Wyoming news information than any other news organization in the state. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com. It's going to be a warm start to the week. Today into Tuesday, a little summer-like really in some areas, and then cool down for most areas midweek and to the latter portions of the week. And it's going to be wet for some of you. Some of you in western Colorado in particular, we'll show you that here in a moment. But it'll be quite warm with lots of 80s, even a few low 90s will be found on the plains today and Tuesday. But the storm that's splitting along the west coast is going to bring cooler, wet conditions and unsettled weather mid to late week. This is not going to end up being a big bad storm because it is splitting. That means it's going to get cool but not cold. It's going to be wet with a more concentrated areas of wetness in areas where the storm is splitting. But there could be some pretty significant rain falling for some of you in the Central Rockies before the week is over. A nice pattern may move in this weekend into early next week. What does nice mean? Well, what do I mean by that? Cool nights, comfortably mild days, classic September weather may develop mid to late weekend into the next week. We'll show you that. Also want to talk about the remains of Typhoon Merbok that hit Alaska this past weekend and will still impact up there through earlier parts of this week. Today's satellite photo shows that storm just off the coast of Northern California. That's pumping in rain and thunderstorm activity to central Northern California, southern and southwest Oregon, and moisture will head this way. That's going right over where a lot of the wildfires and the wildfires producing our smoke here lately, so that's great news. We have another tropical storm forming here in the eastern Pacific, and this is Fiona just grazing through and just clipping Puerto Rico here over the last 24 hours. It's looking like Fiona, after going through these island areas here, will go out to sea and will not be a threat for the East Coast, at least as it looks now. Today's satellite photo matches up quite well with what we're seeing on the 500 millibar chart. The splitting low right here and right here. So there's quite a bit of cool air behind this low up here, quite a bit of moisture with this system here. So what we're going to see kind of is a confluence of events between both of these storms. What used to be one storm, now two, and they're going to work together with a large area of high pressure sitting over the northern plains. As we go into the next couple of days, what we're going to see is the cool air coming behind this cold front right here. Winds aloft are coming in from the northwest. So cool air is going to spill down along and east of the divide as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. This green arrow represents a nice fetch of Pacific moisture that's going to get thrown right into the Four Corners area, Colorado, far southern Wyoming, and into some of the plains. And that cool upslope condition is being overrun, will be overrun midweek by this green arrow. So that's going to mean some pretty good chances for precipitation, especially in this area here. And then there's going to be an axis of moisture where the overrunning takes place, where the moisture gets pushed over that colder air east of the Continental Divide. And here you can see that moisture on the precipitable water forecast. Look at that deep moisture. That looks like what we had at times this summer with the monsoon. This isn't necessarily the monsoon. It's just a good fetch of Pacific moisture and air getting thrown north and eastward by this low off the California coast. And right here, this is by Wednesday morning. That gray area, the brown area here, represents where the cold front boundary is, and that cold front's going to sag south, intersecting that moist air there. And here's the end result. This is through the next 90 hours. So this takes us through 6 p.m. local mountain time for Thursday. A couple of axes of moisture. See this axis of moisture right here, curving in through the Four Corners, clipping southeastern Wyoming, maybe parts of western Nebraska, and certainly the front range of Colorado, northeastern Colorado, then a nice stretch of rain and thunderstorm activity here. Look at how much rain can fall in this area here. It could be significant. You know, it's great to get this September rain because that really helps us get through the remainder of the fire season. Then look at this other axis of moisture right here. Look at southern and southwest Oregon and central and northern California back up into Idaho. This is where a lot of the fire activity's been here lately to cause the smoke. So there's big help coming, especially to the southern and southwest areas of Oregon that have been so impacted by the wildfires there over the last couple of months. And you can see scattered areas of showers and thunderstorms elsewhere. And if you were to focus in a little bit closer in, you can see where those areas of heavier moisture are likely going to be with this system. Now, snow levels are going to be high. While it is going to cool down significantly, snow levels are going to be up pretty high at peak level. Here's the latest smoke map, and you can see how much it's improved. The smoke not nearly as impressive and getting pushed off more to the north and east. And then we're going to get rain falling in this area here over the next 48 hours. So very good to see that. And here is your temperature anomaly for Wednesday. This is by Wednesday afternoon, and you can see the cold air spilling down the eastern side of the Rockies out into the plains. And you can see the colder than average temperatures throughout the Great Basin and most of the central and northern Rockies. Only here in the southern plains will the warm temperatures be by midweek, but this cooler air will push down into those areas by later in the week as well. Speaking of later in the week, this is by late Thursday afternoon and evening. You can see that low that was off the central California coast begins to move through the northern Rockies, and that's going to keep us cooler in that Wednesday, Thursday time frame. Now, this is by Saturday afternoon and evening. High pressure builds back along the west coast. Now we're in a northwest flow, which means that for the weekend, temperatures will rebound a little bit, but they're going to go back to near average to slightly below average temperatures. But this type of pattern brings in drier, stable air. And the end result could be really nice weather late in the weekend and into early next week. This is by Monday night and the Tuesday of next week. A large high builds into the west. So there could be a period of weather this weekend into the middle part of next week that's just going to be gorgeous in the western half of the United States, especially if we can get this rain to fall in many of those areas. Wanted to talk a little bit about the remains of Typhoon Merbok that hit portions of Alaska. Now, it's the remains of the typhoon that traveled from the West Pacific, got caught up in the jet stream, went all the way up into the North Pacific, and then got pushed into western Alaska over the weekend, causing flooding, huge waves, lots of high surf along the west coast areas of Alaska. Now, the worst of it is over, but this type of pattern is going to be pumping in moisture into Alaska here in the coming days. And the end result, look at this. This is over the next 10 days. Look at this heavy precipitation right here from the Aleutians up through Anchorage and the northwest areas of British Columbia. And then if you translate that to snow, significant mountain snow coming to the higher elevations of Alaska, the Northwest Territories, the Yukon, and northwest areas of British Columbia here over the next 7 to 10 days. Have yourself a good Monday. We will see you tomorrow.